Hi everyone. In this course, we've been using power as a lens through which to observe and understand all of the interactions that are involved in planning and implementing an adult education program. And so now we'll take a few minutes to look more closely at the concept of power. There are various meanings of power. On the one hand, well, there's a positive and a negative way to view power. On the one hand, it means simply that we have the ability to do something. All of us can increase our abilities at the same time. On the other hand, power can indicate a competition in which the person who prevails has power over somebody else. And in this sense, power is a zero-sum game. I can only have power by taking power from someone else. To ignore conflict is to depoliticize power. And so we are going to focus here on power in conflict, since that's the kind of power that is frequently present in planning. And basically, power is a relationship in which person A, is able to adversely affect the interests of B, with or without B's complicity. The key word here is interests, because I mentioned B's interests. Interest is a very specific term. It isn't just something like that I'm interested in, but it's rather the basis of class analysis. The people of a particular class, working class, have interests that accrue to them by reason of their position in society, and so it's not preferences or wants. Interests are always benefits that have a material basis. For example, stockholders maximize profits by keeping wages low, whereas it is in the interest of workers to gain a greater share of profits through higher wages. I'm going to talk here about Stephen Lukes, who is an English sociologist. He wrote a marvelous little book about 20 years ago, which has just recently been updated into a new edition. And the book is simply called Power. And he talks about three dimensions of power. And here we look at the first dimension of power. In the first dimension, the question is, who prevails in decision-making when there is an observable conflict? Both the conflict and the victor are clear. And enforcement of this exercise of power can be costly. For example, in Iraq and Syria, there's a high cost to maintaining order. And the other thing to note is that in the first dimension of power, that order is fragile. It's unstable. It is likely to change. I'm sorry, I'm having a little problem changing slides here. I don't know why this isn't moving more quickly. But anyway, in the second dimension of power, and I quote Barak and Baruch here, if you are able to hide from view the very existence of a conflict, you have power. And what Barak and Baruch call this is the mobilization of bias. If people believe that this is the way things have to be, then they are disempowered to take action to change things. This is what Paulo Freire calls fatalism. And the best example of this, I think, in our experience, is bureaucracy. You go into a bureaucrat, and the bureaucrat says, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. This is what the policy is. I would really like to handle this for you, I'm on your side here and I feel your pain, but I can't do anything. That's the mobilization of bias, that you are hiding from view the very existence of conflict. In the third dimension of power, power can be getting A getting B to do what B does not want to do, but it can also involve shaping B's wants. So B wants something that is not in his or her interest. And Luke says that this is the most insidious use of power, to keep hidden conflicts from surfacing, so that you don't even know that what is being forced on you is something that you do not want, that is not in your interest. Now I have a diagram here that sums up what we've been describing. You might want, I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through the diagram. You might want to download this presentation and study this slide. The point is that in this scheme that Luke describes, power may or may not be a form of influence, depending upon whether sanctions are involved. And while influence or authority may or may not be a form of power, depending upon whether a conflict of interests is involved. So I suggest you download this and that you study it, and if you have any questions, we'll try to address them. Power has a material basis. That is, it's not just a product of a social contract. If it was a social contract, power that is given can be taken back, right? In a democracy, people give power to government, but they also set the conditions for taking it back. And that struggle to take power back is often the material basis for power. The material basis. This struggle, or the possibility of struggle, is the material basis of democracy. And so you can see the relationship between, for example, democracy and the right to bear arms. Give you some examples. A labor union negotiates for power. What's the material basis? The material basis is the union's ability to stop production through a strike. Rebels in a country like Syria, when peaceful or political means are thwarted, the material basis for their struggle is their ability to disrupt the economy and the machinery of state through insurgency. What is our role as adult educators in this? We are knowledge workers. We plan and we execute adult education programs. We are intermediaries of knowledge and power. And we are poised to elicit counter stories, stories that extend the boundaries of prevailing discourse, stories of dissent. Counter stories do not of themselves change the relations of power, but they open us and our learners to the possibility of action by which we can penetrate the third dimension of power. I'd like to end with two quotations. One is by William Birnbaum, who's a president of a community college on the East Coast, who says, "No one has a freedom problem until she tries to do something." And the second quote is from the psychologist Maurice Merleau-Ponty. "An unclimbable rock face, a large or small, vertical or slanting rock, are things which have no meaning for anyone who is not intending to surmount them." We'll have a chance to discuss this, as you know, in another segment of this particular module. And I look forward to your questions and your comments. Thank you.